A few weeks ago, or even maybe a month ago, a bill got put down that was going to merge the Israeli government, the Israeli military, with the American military. Because when the military unites together with Israel, America exists no more. We are no longer America first. We are not even America alone. We are not even America united. We are now the United States of Israel. This is one military. This is pretty much like the IDF has the right to come into America and literally arrest people and overthrow potentially our government because now they are part of our government. So for people wondering why they Charlie Kirk, this is why. This was their goal all along, to unify Israel and America. Every other Republican in the GOP voted for this bill to unite Israel and America's military complex together. It becomes an unstoppable network for truth because the truth needs to prevail. What's up, guys? This is God, Grit, and Glory, and I am your host, Veto Creed. We talk about the stuff that most people stay quiet about: Jesus, business, politics, and occasionally a few conspiracy theories. No scripts, no filters, just straight up truth. So join us as we unravel and speak truth. Welcome, everybody. This is Veto Creed with God, Grit, and Glory, and we have another episode for you today. So a lot has been happening and going on in our society recently. In the last few weeks, there has been quite a bit of interesting stir-up. The first and foremost, biggest news that I think happened in the last few weeks has been the fact that on the Senate, a bill had passed. Let me revert. A few weeks ago, or even maybe a month ago, a bill got put down that was going to merge the Israeli government, the Israeli military, with the American military. Yeah, this is not we're a partnership, or we're united, or we're an ally. No. This is one military. This is pretty much like the IDF has the right to come into America and literally arrest people and overthrow potentially our government because now they are part of our government. So for people wondering why they Charlie Kirk, this is why. This was their goal all along, to unify Israel and America. We're doomed, guys. We're cooked. As the young Gen Xers love to say, and Gen Zers love to say, we're cooked. Because when the military unites together with Israel, America exists no more. We are no longer America first. We are not even America alone. We are not even America united. We are now the United States of Israel. This should bother people so much. The craziest part is the bill originally went to the Senate, to the House, and they were voting on it, and it declined. But for whatever reason, it went back, and 4 of the Democrats, by the way, flipped their decision. And let me tell you how corrupt our GOP is. And this is why I don't identify as a Republican anymore, because the Republicans are disgusting. They're all probably pedophiles. They're a pedophile state because they're okay with them bearing the Epstein list. They're okay with all of these disgusting and vile human beings that continue to traffic children, bring children to sacrifice, but they're not okay with somebody like Tristan or Andrew Tate speaking up. That's another thing that happened. And I think they personally did that to distract us from what they were actually up to. Yes, what were they actually up to? They were up to arresting Tristan and Andrew Tate. No, they were up to passing this bill. And to be fair, I don't think we could have done much, because guess who controls all of that? The majority, which is the Republicans. Guess who is sucking at the teat of Donald Trump right now? The GOP. And guess what's actually going on with all this stuff actually going on right now? Thomas Massey and Marjorie Greene actually stepped down, but Thomas Massey was the only person in the entire Senate House, voting committee that actually voted against this bill. The only person. Every other Republican in the GOP voted for this bill to unite Israel and America's military complex together. This is why I believe the Bible doesn't talk about America. This is why I believe it talks only about, China, Russia, Agog and Gog, which is, potentially Russia and America and China going against Israel, and all of the Middle Eastern countries going up against Israel and eventually annihilating them and them, by the way. Just so you guys know, most of Israel is not going to survive. The Bible says it. They have their own Bible. They don't believe in Revelation, but we believe in Revelation. And the Israelis are going to be annihilated. They will be destroyed. And I think primarily is because they're leading up to their own destruction. But the crazy part is I never for a second thought that America would bow down their knee to Israel to the point where they were going to unify and bring together the military to become one big military complex. This is what Charlie Kirk would have been against. There is no way Charlie Kirk would have ever agreed to this agreement. He would have been so loud about it. He would have put a lot of pressure on people voting. He would have put a lot of pressure on all these things. I don't know necessarily if that would have stopped it either way, but he wouldn't have been for it. And I'll be honest with you, James Fishback, if you guys haven't registered as a Republican voter yet, it's too late. But if you are registered Republican, go and vote. James Fishback is actually one of the best candidates. We had him here on my show about 8 months back in December. He is one of the best candidates that I have ever seen. He is America first. He is against AI, basically data centers. He is against industrializing Florida. He is against everything that goes against trafficking and protecting all of these disgusting, vile human beings. And more importantly, he is against Israel first. He supports America first. He is an America first candidate. He is against AIPAC, any of these PACs and any of these lobbyists that are trying to push their propaganda into the office. And then partially, this is why he's hated as much as he is, because he goes against the narrative. And let me tell you something. I've spent the last 5, almost 6 years developing a software called the VoiceBand Project. You guys are going to hear way more about this than you ever will in the coming months, because I think this is where VoiceBand is actually destined to be, where we are in our history right now, because history is being rewritten as we speak right now. The Israelis are taking over our world, not just our government, our world. Because guess what happens when the Israelis unify and become united with the United States and become one military? You do understand that America's military has the most reach and the most influence in the entire world. So by basically sucking at the teat of America, and then of course coming in and trying to gobble them up, which they are doing now, they're essentially replacing our military with the Israeli military. We have no say in any of this. And of course, Andrew Tate, he was definitely against the fight, against Israel coming in and invading Palestine, and he was for Gaza. And in some of his earlier stuff, he talked about it. And then the UK united to take him out. The UK brought in more alleged victims that said he raped us. And of course, let me tell you what they do when they can't prove you of a crime, because you go to a human being and you say, hey, go into court and testify. We'll give you $500,000 to say that he raped me, or he did these heinous things, or he trafficked me, or he held me hostage for a couple of days or a week or two. But these women are coming out and they're saying the opposite. They're saying, yeah, we had intimacy. He playfully did stuff with us. Maybe it wasn't very orthodox stuff, but we never were hostages there. We wanted to be there. So essentially, they're not exactly getting what they wanted out of these victims. And that whole thing in Romania with Tristan and Andrew Tate actually imploded, and they were mad about it. They were pissed off about it because they couldn't get anything to move. They were pissed off about it because they were trying ever so hard to try to make sure that this happens, but none of the charges stuck. None of the charges could stick because they didn't actually commit a crime and there was no evidence. And we still somewhat live in a world where we need evidence. And guess what's going on? Is Trump helping and pardoning Andrew Tate? No, because he's behind it. He's calling the shots. And let me be a little bit more specific about that. Israel is controlling Trump, and Israel wants to eliminate Andrew Tate. He has way too much authority. He has way too much power and influence, and they want to destroy him because they understand that if Tristan and Andrew Tate come out and they start rallying up all of the Americans, the men, a revolution will break out, and they will lose control over our politics. They will lose control over our society, and they can't have that. That is the same thing they feared about Charlie Kirk. That is the same thing they fear about any real men that have any influence or knowledge. There's a lot of people like me that are very opinionated and have a lot of insight, maybe wisdom on certain things and discernment. But my reach is very small, very, very independent compared to the reach that maybe a Tucker Carlson or a Candace Owens or an Andrew Tate or Charlie Kirk has in this world. And because of their reach and because of their influence, they become a direct threat to the narrative. They become a direct threat. So there was this interview that was done by this reporter, and they asked this Israeli IDF soldier, he's Mossad, why do you guys take out some of the people that you take out? And he says, it's because of not what you did today, but what you could do tomorrow. They see you as a threat, and they foresee the potential of what you can do later. They've foreseen the fact that Charlie Kirk would have been a massive threat. Give him another 5 or 10 years, he would have became president. And he would have stood up and said, America first, we are not bowing our knee to Israel because we are a Christian nation and we are pro-God. We are not pro-cult. We are not pro-Baal. We are not pro-Israeli. And we are not pro-Talmud, where it says a 3-year-old you can have sex with. You can have sex with a 3-year-old Gentile girl. It says that in the Israeli Jewish Talmud. Look it up. This is the stuff they don't want you to know. And the more that this stuff surfaces, the more aggressive and the more abrasive and destructive they become. These are the same people that come out and say, if anything ever happens to Israel, we have a fail switch that goes and does all of these things, and it destroys all of these things. And let me tell you something, Israel, so do I. In the event that anything ever happens to me, I also have a fail switch on VoiceBand that a lot of extra stuff is going to be broadcasted. We did a lot of things to make sure that in the event something happens to us, the network becomes even larger. And guess what happens then? You guys can't stop it. It becomes an unstoppable network for truth, because the truth needs to prevail. The truth needs to get out there. I believe ultimately in truth, and I don't believe in just speaking about it. I believe in doing something about it. And see, this is the difference between me and most people. Most people are going to invest all of their energy and their time and their resources on trying to make their life better. My ultimate goal is to try to protect our freedoms and to try to protect our freedom of speech. And I've spent every waking hour for the last 5 or 6 years trying to pave the way for this project and to pave the way for this to happen. And I counter any of this false propaganda that is being shoveled from the GOP, from the, David Harris's of the world, from the Erica Kirk, Jezebelian spirits of the world. from the demonic world that we see now in our Republican United States of America. I don't think a GOP exists anymore. I think just the Israeli GOP exists, which is supported by all the lobbyists. They get paid millions of dollars to go in there and they say, we support a cause. No, you don't. You want to get paid. You want to have a better life. You will sell your soul to the devil himself, to the synagogues of Satan, to get just a little bit of money. This is disgusting, and it should bother people. And we're going to expand on this a little bit because I want to talk to you guys about a very interesting topic. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine recently. We had a sit down, and I love this guy. Good friend. I'm not trying to bring him out in this conversation. I'm obviously not going to name any names. But I'm going to tell you something. We had a conversation specifically about money, and money is the root of all evil. This conversation is going to be more about greed. Money is the root of evil. Money is essentially what drives people to do insane things. Money itself is not evil, but is the root. Essentially, if used and repurposed for the wrong reasons, it can create a lot of problems in this world. And so we had a conversation and a sit down with one of my close friends. And as I started to talk about that, there was this individual who had come out on this YouTube interview, and he was talking about how modest he was and how, he has all of this support and from all of these people, and how he doesn't, the interview question was, do you think you're rich? Like, no, I think I'm okay. I mean, I'm well off, but I don't know if I'm wealthy or if I'm rich. But in a lot of people's standards, I am rich. I'm really, really rich. And it was interesting because if you listen to this individual, and I'm not trying to just throw shade or dirt on this individual, but let me tell you something. There's a lot of people out there that hide behind money, that hide behind status, and they worship it, but then turn around and have to do stuff like this to try to show people that they're not controlled by money. They're not controlled by the narrative when in reality they are. The motives are a lot deeper. So they spend extra energy and time. Israel is one of these nations that does this. We're not controlled by money. We're not always claiming that we're the victims, but you are. This is why you guys currently still get reparations in Germany and in Austria. This is why you guys try to demonize anybody and everybody that tries to publish books like these. These are two of the most hated books on the planet. The Myth of the 6 Million, examining the Nazi extermination plot. Good luck finding this. I bought this on eBay. You guys can still find it. It's written by David Hogan. And this talks about the potential discrepancies with their idea, which we call the big lie. Was there truly 6 million Jews that had died during the Holocaust? Well, this is where the evil stems from. This is where the evil starts. Because if you can create a lie so big, and let me tell you psychologically how this works. Because we normally, as human beings, try not to make big lies because we understand lies are huge. We never lie big, or we seldom lie big. We lie small. So it's called maybe a white lie or a gray area lie. Were you there yesterday? No, I wasn't there. I don't know what you're talking about. Sometimes we have to lie big because our future. Did you cheat on me? No, I did not. Did you sleep with that girl? No, I did not. Did you steal that money? No, I did not. Did you see what happened? No, I did not. Some of these things potentially can cause us to be either arrested or lose loved ones or relationships. So we lie big. But the small lies we are so used to. So there is this psychological factor that happens that because we are used to lying small, we expect everybody else to lie small. We never expect anybody else to lie big. And let me elaborate on what that actually means. When we hear somebody that says, 6 million Jews, that is a big lie. That is a really, really big lie. But we look at that and we say to ourselves, there is no possible way that can be a lie. Because who would exaggerate that many people when only, say, a couple 100,000 people in general, and they mostly from typhus, from starvation, and from World War II, basically environments. Of course, they don't want that to be the narrative, because if that becomes the narrative, then their entire control implodes. People that live in victimhood are better at manipulating the situation. Women that use victimhood are a lot more effective at manipulating to get their way. Women have used this tactic for years. They play the victim. They do this to steal custody of children. They do this to steal, immense wealth from men by playing victims. They neglect men. They don't do their parts. They're not good stewards. They're not good wives. They're not good spouses, but they turn around and they do these things and then they play victim. So the reason I bring this up is because when a big lie like this happens in our world, we don't know what to do with it. So oftentimes we will ignore it, or we will find reasoning for it. And another reasoning could be something as simple as this. Well, so what? What if 6 million didn't? What if 200,000? It's still a lot of people, and Hitler was still Satan, and he's the most evil and vile man on the planet. And you know what I say to that? How about Alexander the Great? You guys actually know how many people he? You guys actually know the fact that he was a homosexual? You guys know that he casually had orgies in his court all the time? And he was a vile and disgusting and perverted human being. Does any of that matter? Did Hitler have sex with children or, homosexual or any of those things? No, he didn't. Did Hitler talk about how important Christianity values were? He sure did. Did Alexander the Great ever talk about how important Christian values were? Absolutely not. So tell me, why is this such a big deal? And the other book before we move on to that is The Protocols of the Learned Elder of Zion. This is one of the most hated books on the planet. This is one of the most hated books on the planet. And if you look on the back, it's the cover from the 1934 French edition of the Protocols. And it says, Les Protocoles des Sages de Zion, which basically is the same book. And it shows a Jew with a really, really big long nose that he's holding the earth with his hands and he's squeezing it. And this is a depiction of how the Jews are trying to control every single narrative and essentially the entire world. And this is a really big problem. Really, really big problem. And a lot of their narrative is driven on greed. And like I said, we're going to be talking about a little bit more about greed today. And greed is the essence of the problem. As I was saying earlier, I had a conversation with one of my friends as we're sitting down and we're discussing this other individual who is essentially this very generous person. And I said, let me ask you a question. And I know this other individual he's talking about, and I know he's not a generous person. I know he's one of the most greediest people on the planet. And when I had confronted him and I had pointed out some of those things that he doesn't even want to help his own family, his direct immediate family, his own sisters are living in poverty when he is claimed to be worth $1 billion. His own sisters live in apartments and could barely afford to survive. His own brother-in-laws are working for them for literally chump change. And he's essentially turned his own family members into his own personal entourage/slavery. Let me explain to you what I mean by slavery. Because essentially how it works is when you hire your own family members and you control their resources, you can manipulate them. And not only that, you expect a lot more from them because they are family. So you'll essentially turn around and say, oh, I expect you to perform 5 times more than I would expect Joe over here to perform, or John or Frank, because you're family and your expectations are up here and I know what you're capable of. But I'm going to pay you less because you're a family member. Completely ignoring the fact that they have multiple children potentially, or they have the cost of living is very expensive, or the fact that they're billionaires themselves. And some of you may turn around and say, Vito, when did you become a socialist? I'm not counting this other individual's money. I'm counting the mindset of somebody that claims to be a Christian, but is so greedy that he won't even help his own immediate family. The one story that I absolutely admire and love in the Bible is the story of Lazarus. You guys know the story of Lazarus? Lazarus was a great friend of Jesus. One of Lazarus's greatest gifts and his greatest traits was the fact that he was extremely wise, but he was overly generous. And he compensated his workers with an immense salary. He treated his workers as if they were even more than his own family. And he provided for all of his family members, and he took care of everybody in his house. What does that mean? That means he took care of his mom, he took care of his sisters and brothers, and possibly even his uncles and his cousins, and possibly even all of his friends. He would throw some of the most lavish parties and take care of everybody, and they would enjoy themselves. He took care of it. He understood the fact that God had given him such a great ability to make money that he would use that to glorify God, but ultimately he would use that to bless others. See, that is the way that I feel that our world should exist. I have another friend. We were down in Washington, and I had stayed with this individual, not specifically in his house, but he had some rentals that we had rented from him. And he is actually a treasurer. He's a treasurer for one of the local churches. And one of the conversations that I had with him, he said, look, Veto, if you knew how truly cheap people are in our Russian Slavic community, it would make you nauseous. He's like, I know at least 20 or 30% of these people that go to these church have completely paid off their houses, have completely paid off their cars, have completely paid off their vacation homes, and they're all worth well over $1 million, at least a third of them. But the amount of money that they give to the church is a disgrace. That is one thing that he said, it is hard for me to come to terms with, to understand that somebody could potentially be worth $2 or $3 million, but then give only $100 every month to the church. Meanwhile, he uses the church to bring his kids to summer camp. He uses the church to bring his kids to, Sunday school. And he uses the church to come and do, Bible studies. And then he uses the church every Sunday to bring his family, and they listen and they worship and they do all those things in the house of God. But he donates $100 a month. Just to give you guys a little bit of an example, that's probably not even enough to pay 1 week's electricity. That's probably enough to pay 1 day's electricity. Some of these churches, they run a lot of lights, a lot of, massive air conditioning, massive heaters, and it costs potentially $2,000 to $3,000 just to run electricity every single month. That's for a small church. For a large church, you could spend probably upwards of about $10,000 just maintaining all of the basic essential things. So when you tell me that somebody donates $100, that's like you going to a homeless person on the corner and handing him $1 right now. Knowing well that he can't afford to buy even a McChicken for that amount, because McChickens are double the price. Knowing the fact that you're just donating pennies to the cause, which are not going to make any dent whatsoever. Let me tell you something. The number one country that notoriously gets its reputation for being cheap are the Jews. There is a saying in our culture, it says, don't be a Jew. And when they say that, you almost automatically know that they're referring to you being cheap. There's also this saying, I don't know how true it is when the Ukrainian was born, the Jew cried, or something like that along those terms. It sort of implies that the Ukrainian could be more cheap than the Jew, but I don't think anybody can be as cheap as the Jew. I think maybe the second cheapest person that in our culture is essentially an Indian from India, and maybe third is a Chinaman. But let's just say the Jews and the Indians and the Chinamen, they don't really compare to how cheap Slavics can be all the time either. I think, honestly, it's Jew, and then ultimately it becomes the Slav, which is the Russian and the Ukrainian, because I think sometimes even Ukrainians and Russians are even more cheaper than the Jews, because oftentimes they even have more money to spend. I got a family member, and I'm not going to name who it is, but he always makes that comment and he says, well, you know how cheap I am. You know how cheap. He owns it. And he thinks it's some sort of like virtue. And I'm like, dude, it's not a virtue to be cheap. When you're this cheap, it is a burden because your entire life is controlled by money. Let me tell you something. Money is essentially that which drives us to do really ridiculous things. We have two controllers in our life. Essentially, you are going to be controlled by two things. And I can guarantee you, for everybody listening, you're controlled by these things, or you're in denial of being controlled by one of these two things. Or possibly you can be controlled by both. The first thing is money, or the desire to make money, or the obsession to try to multiply or make money. Or this could be in a form of a business where a person wants to continually make money and money and money, and it's just like a game to him. And he makes a little more, and he wants some more, and he wants some more, and he's constantly chasing and multiplying. And look, I'm not saying that it's a sin to make money. But if you spend every waking hour of your day thinking about how am I going to multiply this money, that money, where can I invest some more money? I got a good friend, he's in the car business. I was actually in his wedding. And he spent the last 20 years chasing this dream. I'm going to pay off my dealership. I'm going to pay off every single car. I'm going to pay off everything. I'm going to pay off this. But in the midst of all this, he destroyed his relationship with his family, with his spouse, because she didn't care about the amount of money that he made. But his obsession to make money got the best of him. His obsession to make $100 here, $1,000 there, $10,000 there turned into millions and millions of dollars that he was making. And his eyes got more and more greedy, and his appetite got more and more big. And I got another friend that's also in the car business who he's on a similar path where he is obsessed with the idea of being rich, being wealthy, being well off, having everything paid off. And I mean, some people, obviously, they seek security. In fact, I'll bring this up because this individual, he chooses that over family. He chooses that to try to find a good relationship with a spouse or a girlfriend, and then build a relationship with God. And I love this individual. This guy is a really good friend of mine. I love him. I mentor him. I've known him for many, many, many years. But his desire to constantly be pursuing and his obsession to make more. And let me just tell him, if he's listening, he figures out I'm talking about him, it's never going to be enough. You can make $10 million and you're going to want to make the next 10. If you ask a millionaire about his millions, he's always going to say, I want to make the next million. He's never going to say, I'm content with the first 10. He's never going to say that he's content with the first even 100. He's going to always want to make 10 more, or he's always going to want to make one more. It's always going to be a chase. And so as I bring up these examples, God will oftentimes strip us of that what we have to try to teach us a life lesson. Sometimes it could be a very expensive one, because if we choose money over God, or if we choose money over our purpose in life, or if we choose money over family, it will destroy us. It will destroy our family. And if we're fortunate enough where God essentially shakes us like a tree, where all of the animals, will say, a visual thing, where all the animals fall out, the ones that are chewing us up, all the vines, or he may shake out all the fruit to show us the fact that we have more than just the money that we make. And look, I'm not better than any one of you guys. Obviously, who would I be if I thought I was better than anybody? I fall into one of these camps as well. My obsession has always been business. I've always thought I was a pretty savvy entrepreneur. I have a very good understanding of how business works, and I've been fairly successful at multiplying and creating wealth. But I will tell you, 100% of all the wealth that I've ever accumulated or made has been a blessing. In other words, it has not been anything that was in my own control. In fact, I remember there was one year of my work where I was obsessing and trying new strategy after new strategy after new strategy. I had probably exhausted over, I want to say at least 50 strategies. And no matter what I did, I kept reaching dead ends and kept reaching dead ends and kept reaching dead ends until one day I gave up. And about a month went by and I did absolutely nothing. And I remember it was like somebody had opened the dam gates to a lake. And all of these jobs just poured up. All of this money and revenue just poured out of nowhere. Because God is in control. We're not in control. God is in control. If he wants you to be wealthy, you will be wealthy. If it is in your cards, let me rephrase that. If God knows that your ability to be a good servant of and a good steward of the money is in your cards, he will give you wealth. If he knows that it will be a toxic, basically, trait and it will actually poison you, he will not give you wealth. He will make sure that you don't have any wealth. I bring this up because I know a lot of people, they think that anybody can become wealthy. No, absolutely not. It is not in our cards to potentially win the lottery. I'm sorry for all of you Russians and Ukrainians out there that love to play the lottery. And I have over the years as well, just for fun. But I'm obviously a realist, and I'm understanding the fact that the chances of us winning is not only just odds, but God will never give us poison. And ultimately, winning the lottery would be poisonous. It would be very toxic. And for a lot of us, it would probably destroy us. There are two elements in this world that give us wealth. It is Satan, because he is the ruler of this world. We see sometimes people in this world and we think, oh man, God must have blessed him. There's one individual who specifically lives here in Florida who is extremely wealthy, drives Lambos, does a lot of things, and he tells people openly, God favors me. And I know this individual pretty well. I know the lifestyle that he lives. And let me tell you something. This guy, God does not favor you. Satan favors you. Satan favors you because you have no will whatsoever to do God's will. You have no desire to seek God and Jesus. You have the desire to seek your own flesh and your own wicked desires, but you have no desire to seek God. This is the crazy part, is people oftentimes will mix up God's blessing or Satan's, basically, I'm not going to say it's a blessing, but Satan's curse. God's blessing is when God gives knowing that he is giving to somebody that is going to use it for good cause. That's God's blessing. He understands the fact that you're a good steward, so he blesses you. He gives you just enough to take care of that, to take care of this. And he takes care of you just like it says he takes care of the birds and the trees. But when Satan takes care of you, he makes you sign something away, and it's called signing away your soul. In other words, he gets you wrapped up. He makes you obsessed. He basically gets a hold of you, and it is through the form of greed, and it is through the form of obsession. And that desire never burns out. And he gives you something that he knows will destroy you in the end. He knows it will turn you to prostitution, basically partying, drugs, drug abuse, and let me rephrase that, not prostitution, sleeping around. He knows it's going to turn you for you to constantly be living in infidelity, constantly sleeping around, and just having one night stands with everybody. He knows that's what it'll lead to, so he gives it to you freely. On the other hand, on the flip side, God doesn't want that to be your lifestyle, so he won't expose you to those things. He'll say, if I give this person, because God sees into the future. It says, I knew you in your womb. So if you are a child of God and God knows you and God protects you, he will never give you that which will poison you. So for a lot of people out there that live in either moderation, in other words, you're not wealthy, you're not poor, but you're always wanting more, and you're always looking over the fence thinking, why do all these people have wealth and I don't? My guess would be because you probably can't handle wealth. I mean, I'm sitting here with the book open here, and the good book here in Proverbs, and I've been reading Proverbs for probably about a month now, and I continue reading it over and over and over and over. And it's a lot of information, but it's a lot of useful information, especially for the topic we're talking about today. And it talks about, who can be trusted, where blessing comes from, where curses come from. Better is the poor who walks in his integrity than one perverse in his ways, though he be rich. There's a lot of people that I know that are perverse in their ways. They worship the money. They worship the money, that they make, to the point where that is their God. And just to go back to the earlier statement that I made, I had made my businesses and my entrepreneurship my idol, my God. And so that had sort of taken over in my life. And I remember when I turned around and I had prayed about it, when God brought me to my knees, and I prayed about it and I said, God, I'm all yours. I had used some people in my life that were very close to me to sort of point this out. And these people, of course, did some really disgusting things. I'm not going to justify what they did. God knew that they were going to do what they were going to do. It's essentially the same thing when God used Judas to betray him. God knew that Judas was going to betray him. I've had some betrayal in my life, and God knew that these people were going to betray me anyways. And so he used bad for good. In other words, he used something that they were going to do anyways because they're evil, but he gave me a life lesson from it and said, you can learn from this. The second thing that destroys and makes us perverse and makes us move away from God is the selfishness, self-seeking desires. Me, I. It's when somebody says, I did this. I take credit. I'm responsible. Or they go to the gym and work out, 3 times a day. Look at my muscles. I did this. I'm so beautiful. I. Or they worry so much about themselves that they will seek anything to make themselves feel better. Whether it's therapy, whether it's self-therapy like drugs or sex or other illicit behavior. It is I, me. It's how I feel. They will get in and out of relationships, and they will abandon these relationships because of the way the person made them feel. Oh, you made me feel this way. I can't be with you because of the way you make me feel. Let me tell you something, guys. Nobody gives a crap about how you feel. And oftentimes everybody says, oh, God really cares about the way you feel. I'll probably argue that. I don't think he does. I genuinely think there is a lot of stuff that God does not care about because he understands that your motives on why you do the stuff you do is evil. And you want to play victimhood. And then you want other people to feel sorry for you. And then you want to drag other people in to your lies and to your obsessions and to everything else. And then this is why, and I mean, kids do this. Let me tell you a good story just because it's pretty innocent. My daughter, she's very clever. She's very, very loving, and she knows how adorable she is. She knows how easily she can wrap daddy around her fingers, but she does this periodically. When she wants something, she's already figured out the way of the woman. She comes up to me and she says, I love you, Dad. That's her favorite saying. I love you, Dad. I'm like, I love you too, honey. What's up? Oh, nothing. I love you. And she'll keep repeating it. And then about 5 minutes goes by and she's like, Dad, can I have a snack? And she'll walk up and she'll grab a bag of chips, or she'll grab this, or she'll grab that, or she'll grab a pop. And she's already in her mind prepared and she's sort of already planned and paved the way on how this is going to go down. She's already thought about it. And this is innocent, but this is sort of the human nature. This is sort of the human nature of humans in general, where they turn around and they already know what they're doing. And oftentimes we do this even to God. We turn around and we say, oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And in the back of their mind, they've already had thoughts about how they're going to do the same thing tomorrow and how they're really not sorry, but they need to say sorry because God can hear them. But they're forgetting that everything that goes through your brain. Let me explain this to you in layman's term. When you're writing code on a computer, right? And you essentially write something and we'll say in colons or in captions, you write I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say that. I'm actually don't plan on doing this. But you still write it, or you say hidden and you write something. And you're speaking, let's just say, to an artificial intelligent agent. Just because you don't say it doesn't mean that it can't read it. God is the same way. He reads our heart, sort of like an agent or an AI agent reads our words, our comments. He sees everything. He knows everything. He knows ill intent, and he even also knows everything that isn't said. A thought is still something that isn't said, and he knows even deeper about stuff that we don't understand ourselves. But let me tell you something. Ultimately, there is a lot of things that we must understand, that either we are going to be consumed by greed, and we're going to be consumed by covetousness. We're going to want stuff that doesn't belong to us. We're going to want somebody else's money, somebody else's lifestyle, somebody else's success, somebody else's popularity. We're going to desire stuff that doesn't belong to us, even though it's not in our cards, even though God hasn't designed us that way. I remember when I was younger, my dad was a really, really good singer. And I had this desire, and I thought, oh, if I could sing like that, that would be so amazing. People would respect me. And I was a kid. I mean, but this is natural for somebody to turn around and think like this, because that is human nature. The way that God wired us is we're self-seeking. We are self-seeking. Our biology is self-seeking because we live in the flesh. We are sinful. We are self-seeking, and we're always going to look out for ourselves first. But when we have a relationship with God, it breaks all that. It counters selfishness. It counters our own self-desire. I make it a habit to understand when somebody pays me a compliment and they say, man, you've done so much with your life. You've successful. I talked to a friend today that I hadn't talked to 20 years. 20 years. And he turned around and said, Vito, holy smokes. He's like, you've done so much with your life. You got your degrees done. Multiple degrees. You have 4 kids with 2 on the way. You're happily married. You know, you're a multimillionaire. You live near the water. You have an amazing 4,000 square foot house. You have you have multiple businesses. You have all of these things going for you. And I stopped and I said, God is good. And I owe it all to God, not to myself. The ability, that desire, that drive, that passion, that idea, that anything stems originally from God giving it to you. And oftentimes we want to strip that away and we say, no, this is what we do. This is what people do. You probably don't even notice it. They do this naturally in our world right now. They say, oh, God's not the creator. A Big Bang is. Oh, God's not the creator. There is no designer. Nobody designed this world. It designed itself. They want to take credit away where credit is due. And humans are natural at doing this as well. Oh, I'm the one that went and got school. I'm the one that spent hours. What does God have to do with me putting in 12-hour days and learning how to become an engineer or a doctor or a businessman? Where do you suppose your ability to breathe came from? For you to be able to use your brain power to read those books. I mean, if you want to get really deep, the money that was produced, the opportunity that was handed to you, that you don't live in Africa or in India, all of these things are God-formed, God-formulated. You don't control any of these things. None of these things come from you. And I think this is where a lot of people miss the target, and they obsess about everything constantly. And they think to themselves, oh, it's all me. It's all me, I. None of it is you. None of it is you. In fact, with the flash of a light, in a millisecond, you can be gone from this world, and anything you have done would have been 100% done in vain. So this is why we have to live for God and not for ourselves. This is why we have to pursue and do things that is going to make the world a better place, not just on the planet, but in the afterlife. In other words, we're supposed to go and do stuff like the Great Communion, right? The Great Commission. The Great Commission. The Great Commission essentially is something where we go and we preach the gospel to everybody else and we bring people to the Lord. It's basically preaching the good word, the gospel. When we don't do that, everything's going to go into vain. So all of these things that you do, you self-seek ways to fulfill yourself, whether it's through, working out obsessively. Oh, I eat right. I take care of myself. Oh yeah. Good for you. I have to feel better about myself. So I have to do therapy and I have to go and do, this and that. Like, and I say therapy, by the way, I don't mean actually going and sitting in front of a therapist. I mean, going on long vacations, fishing trips, hiking, hunting, traveling abroad, going and binging somewhere for, a week and being lazy and slothful and doing nothing but other than for yourself. That's what I mean by therapy. Therapy comes in many forms, but you self-seek to take care of yourself and you get used to those things. Let me tell you something. The counter to that is having a family. You're going to realize really fast that you have no time for yourself. You're going to realize really fast that you don't matter. You are just another cog in the wheel. A dad, a mom are just another cog in the wheel. And God has intentionally done this by design to strip us of our conceitfulness. So we're not conceited in our own achievements, in our own abilities. And this is why God made women the childbearers, because who cares? You're a doctor, so what? What is a doctor going to help you? Oh, you're entrepreneur or all these things. You still have to carry the child. You still have to be pregnant for 9 months. You still have to, then carry, raise the child. None of that matters. By design, God designed it so none of that matters. So if you are being consumed by the desire to make money or your obsession to make money, hear this, that no amount of money will ever be enough. You maybe have $50,000 in your account. Let me tell you, I remember when I had my first. Then you maybe will get 200,000. Maybe you're already sitting in that. Maybe you have $500,000. Maybe you're sitting and your overall net worth is over $1 million. Let me tell you something, it's never going to be enough. Because there's a saying, more money, more problems. Essentially, then you have people wanting to sue you. Essentially, then you have people that want some of your money. And then you have, the tax man after you, or, your mother-in-law or your father-in-law trying to shake you down. Oh, hey, I need money, help out your family and all these things. There's always going to be something happening that'll stop you from being able to enjoy that wealth anyways. Doesn't matter. So anyways, I thank you guys for tuning in. I know we've been a little bit all over the map. I stemmed in from talking about Israel. So in conclusion, I will tell you that freedom of speech, we are losing it. The reason I wanted to talk about freedom of speech and then transition into greed is because everything stems around freedom of speech. Everything stems around freedom of speech. And VoiceBand, by the way, technically it's already built. We have nodes that are scattered across the world, literally across the world. The way that the system is created is it's created in a way where nobody can ever take it down. It is an untake-downable program. It's an untake-downable infrastructure. And we came up with VoiceBand, but we also came up with a messenger version embedded into VoiceBand called Banter. And Banter is basically it's an internal chat program similar to Telegram, but it's all served on a decentralized network. So all of your messages are encrypted. All of your messages are temporarily saved for 30 days. You can do voice messages. You can do voice memos, I should say, where you're talking back and forth with one another. Everything's fully encrypted. Nobody could ever interfere or intervene on your program because everything's built on a node and everything's fully encrypted. It's very, very important to understand. So for anybody wanting to sign up, get on voiceband.io and do some research about our program, our project, I should say. The project we are pushing out. I'm going to start advertising it pretty aggressively here. We plan on doing a hard launch on September 9th, 2026. September 9th represents Charlie Kirk's assassination, where they try to assassinate freedom of speech. So we are going to be releasing a hard launch for VoiceBand on September 9th, and there's going to be a countdown when we do our hard launch. So stay tuned, and stay tuned for more on this podcast. Thank you for tuning in.